Give me big old buckets of butter beer. Give me big old barrels of butter beer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair, grab a butterbeer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Sierra Obermark.
I'm Sam Williams, and that's right, we've only got two hosts today. But in lieu of just the two of us, we also have two fabulous guests. Welcome back, our most favorited commenter ever, Absent-Minded Raven, a.k.a. Matthew. Hello, Matthew. Welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm sure there's plenty of other good commenters, but I'm grateful that you acknowledge me for that.
Of course. Give our listeners a reminder. Just what's your house? What's your fave book? What's your fave character?
Okay, my favorites can vary a lot day to day. I think at the moment I'm probably thinking Goblet of Fire, just because it's intriguing and interesting. Favorite characters, usually Lupin, mainly because I feel sorry for him, though obviously he has some problems that need to get sorted out, but I suspect he probably needs a good therapist and possibly some antidepressants. As for my house, if you listen back to episode 6, you will understand why I call myself a toasted marshmallow peep.
Excellent. Everyone go back and listen to episode 6. You'll get an excellent little reminder as to why Toasted Marshmallow Peeps are now a Hogwarts house.
And our second guest today is my brother. My brother Michael is here. And we've been talking about Harry Potter for a long, long time, and so it's very exciting to have him on the podcast here.
I can't top Sierra, though.
So Michael, do you want to give your introduction? What's your Hogwarts house? How did you find Harry Potter? Favorite book, favorite character, all that jazz?
Okay, my Hogwarts house is Hufflepuff. J.K. Rowling herself even said, I'm pretty sure, that she would want to be a Hufflepuff. But she isn't.
I'm pretty sure Irvin's in the background going, hi!
I started off reading Harry Potter. I was pretty good reader when I was a kid, but it was either first or second grade that I needed something more challenging, so I just asked my sister, Sierra, if she could introduce me to something, and she just gave me a Harry Potter book. I immediately just kept reading. It was awesome. Favorite book would be definitely Goblet of Fire, so Matthew, heck yeah. And
Today
my
is a
favorite
good
character... favorite character is probably Professor McGonagall, but I do think Mrs. Weasley is pretty sick. She's awesome. She's like the ultimate mother.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, with our amazing guests here, we have gathered for this episode number 25 to discuss the 149th chapter of the Harry Potter series, A Sluggish Memory, which is Half-Blood Prince Chapter 17. And the reason we chose this one is because Harry's first lesson with Dumbledore takes place on the very day this episode comes out, just 28 years ago. We encourage you to read the chapter before listening, but we're not your mom, so do what you want, but it's usually helpful.
Especially because my chapter summaries are more joke than substance. So if you really want to get to know the chapter, please read. Also, it's crazy. We're at the quarter century mark of episodes already. That's 25. We've been around for almost a year. This is wild. And if you would like that to keep happening, please head to the pub, which is aka our patreon.com/3broomsticks. That's with the numeral 3. 3 broomsticks with the numeral 3 at patreon.com to sign up We're offering bonus content, chats with the hosts, on episode shoutouts to our patrons, etc. And a little sneak peek. 2024 will be bringing some new and improved Patreon content. Sierra and I might have a little bit of dice rolling going on, a little bit of creations, some creativity and improv as we maybe dungeons our way through some dragons. In a Harry Potter setting. So, who knows? That might be there. You might be interested. We will keep you posted on all of that. But we would really appreciate your help in keeping the lights on at the Three Broomsticks so we can talk about Harry Potter for a long time to come. And let us raise a toast. Yes, it's the holidays. Well, just after. But you can still drink alcohol. We're going to toast on the comments on episode 22, which had a very special guest, and you should go back and listen to it. That episode was all about your favorite, the most magnanimous, enigmatic, flourishing fluorescent of a fashion icon, Mr. Gilderoy Lockhart. We raise our glass to commenter Aurelia, oh my gosh, a fellow host, who said, this leads me to my question. Do we think, compared to Umbridge, where they also only read books during lessons, the students could have learned something useful from Lockhart's fraud books? Aside from claiming it was him, we can still assume he stuck to some of the real how of the real people, which then still holds some educational value. So, aside from Magical Me, the other books could still have some value. Blasphemous! No, I think she's onto something.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. I mean, I think at least part of it has to be, factual and have some real information in there that you'd be able to learn from. So even though most of what he's testing them on is about him and his trivia questions and his favorite color is lilac, I think that there's definitely, if you're actually reading it for the substance of what actually happens in the books, I would have to assume that they have some, at least, logical information that would be useful.
I don't think he would get hired in Hogwarts if he wasn't at least somewhat credible.
I think Dumbledore specifically hired him because he wasn't credible. At the very end of that book, he says when Ron and Harry tell Dumbledore about how the memory charm backfired, he says something along the lines of like, "Hoisted upon your own sword, Gilderoy," which means that Dumbledore knows that he's been casting memory charms. So maybe he hired him in case Flitwick just keeled over, so he could be like, "Look, a new charms teacher. He knows one spell really well." But I don't think he's hiring him because it's credible.
Yeah.
Well, the information, I mean, you wouldn't allow him to, even if you're going to hire him, I feel like you wouldn't allow him to have his entire collected works as the books that everybody has to buy if there wasn't at least something in there.
I don't know that Dumbledore ever looks over anybody's list of materials.
Okay, but McGonagall would.
Yeah, that's true.
Somebody's
but also,
looking over it.
I'm pretty sure
Somebody has to.
McGonagall just had a noose tied up in her room from all the time she wanted to kill herself from Gilderoy.
She'd have several nooses.
Her and Snape have tandem ones where they hold hands. That's so dark. Listeners, you should not listen to me. Oof. I'm a fool of a man.
Well, going back to the original question, as I followed up to Oreo's comment, I think that a lot of it probably is valid because, as you say, he's taking stories of people that actually did these things. So,
yeah.
But the only question is how much of it was exaggerated in the telling. So, were people sort of doing these great things and then boasting about it to their mates later, and so the story got a bit bigger, and so even though that village knew about it, it had already been exaggerated a bit by the time Lockhart got to it. Yeah.
I think the real life comp is somebody like Dave Eggers. Most people know Dave Eggers from the screenplay he wrote for Where the Wild Things Are, or maybe The Circle. If you saw Emma Watson and John Boyega and Tom Hanks in that movie, he was the original author of the book that's based off of. But Dave Eggers, in his like really critically acclaimed work, other than his first book, which is an autobiography, he fictionalizes people's real stories. So like The Monk of Mocha and What is the What are both books where he like interviewed friends or people that he knew for a long time and then totally fictionalized what happened. But the degree of which he fictionalized is really unclear. So I wonder if how much Gilderoy has made creative licensing changes and like sort of just to say like, well, this would be better for the story.
He merged a couple of characters there, make it more sellable.
Well, it's like any movie where they go based on a true story. You're like, okay, well, how much is based on a true story?
And even then, Fargo, the movie, the original movie, not the TV series, says this is based on a true story, and that's totally fabricated because the Coen brothers just love messing up their audience. So I would like to see like McGonagall's notated copies of all of Gilderoy's works where she goes, that's not possible. That's not possible. You couldn't do that. Here's
oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
So those are the works that I really want to read. Otherwise, it honestly seems like they should keep Lockhart around for the creative writing department that doesn't exist.
Well, is he?
That would be crazy.
Is he any good at writing after the incident?
Oh, well, he learned how to do his joined up writing.
So has it affected his ability to compose a meaningful and dramatic sentence?
Yes, it absolutely has. And Dumbledore should have just gone down to the chamber with Harry and Ron, clearly, and not Gilderoy.
Oh, definitely.
Well, yes, but he wasn't there.
But wasn't he?
That's a whole other rant topic.
It really is. All right. Shall we move on to the chapter summary?
Let us.
Great.
Yay.
Dear listeners, this is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Chapter 17, A Sluggish Memory. And in a book all about the unveiling the mystery behind why Voldemort is Voldemort, this chapter gives us luscious details and full glimpses into the biggest mystery: how a painting gets drunk. As Harry, Hermione, and Wan return to Hogwarts, much is to be discovered. Ron kinda hates his girlfriend. McGonagall hates the holidays are over. Seamus doesn't just produce fire, and Snape, that is Professor Snape, Harry, probably isn't maybe the baddie or goodie we think he is, maybe. And Dumbledore, too, has had a run with the mangy lion man, Rufus Scrimgeour Whatsit. The crux of the chapter lies inside Dumbledore's pensive, where we find Hot Bod Vod and the total nod to Sweeney Todd. Tom Riddle Jr. has killed his parents and blamed his uncle in a reverse Hamlet. And also Horace Sluggymug may hold the key to revealing all evil.
Very nice.
Wow.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Reverse Hamlet.
Cool.
What can you say in response to that?
Let's just begin with
Hot Bod
Mrs.
Vod.
Weasley.
Wait, sorry.
No.
Settled.
We got to start with the painting. I need to know, Sierra, how do they drink 500-year-old wine? Is it actually like 500-year-old wine? Is she just pretending? What is happening?
It's all very good questions, to be honest. And I will side note on this for 1 minute to say, yeah, if it's 500-year-old wine, was it painted 500 years ago? Or did the barrel exist 500 years ago and then it was painted into it? That's questions need to be answered.
It's fine. We can get to it when we actually get to it in the episode.
We can do a whole paintings and how they work episode. So, we're going to just start with Mrs. Weasley is the best. She is the GOAT.
I love her.
Yes, Michael loves her. She goes through so much. She truly, deeply cares about every single member of her family, which kind of sadly, is not very well represented throughout books as like someone actually caring about every single person in their family. And she just really wanted to believe that Percy came for Christmas with no ulterior motives. And I think...
I hate Percy so much.
I think it's so sad that, you know, she's so upset about it and they're trying to cheer her up, but she just really wanted her family to be together for Christmas.
Counterpoint on two things. Mrs. Weasley is not at all supportive of Fred and George's dreams and only gets the tide turned when she sees how well the business does. And second point, she seems like a really good mom for the boys. The glimpses that you get of Ginny and her seem less wholesome. I
will counterpoint your counterpoints.
Okay. It's called a rebuttal, but that's fine.
No, it's a counterpoint of your counterpoints.
So if you're rebutting, you have to jump up and scream objection.
Oh, I see. Do that, Sarah. Do it. Do it. I dare you.
Objection.
Okay, thank you.
On the first note, I think that's valid for all moms or parents in general who just want the best for their kids. And if they think that they're going down a path that will not lead to success, happiness, being able to support themselves, whatever the case may be, then I can understand why she may be a little concerned about it. But, you know, and so then it makes sense that when she sees that they can be successful doing what they're doing, then she's accepted it. Because so far, I'm sure everybody that she knows and everybody in her family has gone to Hogwarts, stayed all the way through, and then gotten, you know, kind of a regular job. Or she kind of has a interesting case because she's a homemaker, which, you know, we would have to assume, we don't know exactly, you know, how she gets there. Did she have a job first and then become one when they had so many kids, or what the deal is? But you have to imagine that she's just, I've seen this in regular people too, like not regular people, real life people, where non-magical folk, you know, the muggles. Non-magical folk, exactly. Where you know, you have a whole family who just go and they work for a company and they get their pension and they do that thing. And so when someone shows an entrepreneurial instinct, almost everybody's like, you sure you really want to do that? I don't know if that's a good idea, because it's not a guarantee. It's
something new and they don't understand it. And so they're a bit dubious about it. Mm-hmm.
I can
counter.
Okay,
go ahead.
I was just let's do the first counterpoint. I can understand. I mean, obviously you can see with Molly and Arthur. Like Molly has really put up with Arthur and his dream. He's interested in Muggles. He's not really interested in much else. So she's been very supportive of him and the amount of money that they don't make because of what he wants to do and the stuff that he has in the garage. And she really only gets mad at him about the car after it's been flown illegally by teenagers, which, you know, they're teens, so have a better lock system. But you know, Bill goes and gets this great respectable job with a respected institution where he's doing dangerous things, but also making probably lots of money. I mean, it's banking, so I don't know that it's ethical. We can have an episode on that later about curse breaking in Egypt, stealing the treasures of other people. It's fine. It's very British, actually. And then Charlie goes and has this other dangerous job, but like again, he's in another country. Maybe he's making lots of money too. And Percy goes and gets this respectable job. And I can understand that Mrs. Weasley is concerned about her children's well-being because she wants them to be better off than her and Arthur are. At the same time, I still think there's a little bit more to be done. This isn't just a Mrs. Weasley thing. This is very much Arthur and Molly. Could have pointed Fred and George in the right direction. Maybe, hey, like, let's talk to the entrepreneurial department, or let's go have an interview with the people who run that side of the ministry and the laws, and let's set you up with an internship and have you talk with Zonko or something like that helps them towards their dream while also giving them a more reasonable future to do it.
Managing their expectations a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, this is what it's really like doing this. And
yeah. I think that's the thing that I really want, because what it just seems like from Harry's perspective, and again, Harry's perspective is so flawed. It may be that they did all of this, and Harry's just like la 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 the snitch, la 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 Ginny's boobs, and that's just all he thinks about. So, but I would have loved to seen a little bit more of like, okay, I see that you guys are serious about this. Let's try and help you in that direction as much as reasonably we can do.
I just don't. I mean, when thinking about all the businesses and things, there's not a whole lot that you can imagine would be like a current entrepreneurship. I mean, it seems like most of the businesses have been around for centuries and just passed down. So
doesn't Ollivander's have a like 382 BC or something ridiculous like that?
Yeah, 782 BC, I think. Yeah. So it's, yeah, I feel like if that's kind of what you're working with and you're wanting to open up something brand new, I mean, because they do talk to Zonko and like work with, I think they buy part of his business or something like that, or
they think about buying Zonko. They think about buying.
They think about
Zonkos,
it, but then they decide not to.
But it's after, they ban all Hogsmeade trips.
Right.
Anyways, you were going to counterpoint the Ginny counterpoint too.
Yes, my counterpoint to the Ginny counterpoint. I don't know that we see too much of it. Also, if you've raised 6 boys and then you're presented with a girl and you're like, oh, I kind of have to change things. But then also, you don't really. So then you're kind of overthinking it. And then Ginny is very like, I'm just as good at things as my brothers and wants to do a lot of the same things as her brothers and isn't maybe the girly girl that Molly was hoping for when she finally got a daughter. And so, I mean, I think, is there room for improvement? Sure. But I think that kind of how she deals with Ginny is probably, it tracks. I mean, it seems logical enough that she either has no idea what to do with a girl or she has no idea what to do with a girl like Ginny.
Well, I think we see a little bit of that with some of the way she treats her kids in general, that she's kind of got one main approach which works better for some kids than others. Right. Whereas I think any parent would tell you that if they've dealt with more than one kid, that you've got to adjust what you're doing to deal with the kid that's in front of you, because one kid is going to respond to this type of approach and another kid is going to respond to that type of approach. And
totally.
So that may be the issue that we're talking about with Ginny. It could also be behind how she's struggling to connect with Percy.
True.
And that she's trying to treat him the same as her other sons, and he's different and needs a different sort of reassurance and interaction that he's not getting.
Yeah. Makes sense. That sounds logical to me as well.
Yeah, sorry for bringing the tone down.
If we're going to choose any character for the greatest of all time, I can see why Mrs. Weasley is there. Those are my only 2 pings in her armor. But Michael, what do you got? What do you got for goat? Why do you think Mrs. Weasley is the goat?
I don't know. I think she cares about more than just her children. Like, she cares about Harry and Hermione as well. And she's just such a motherly figure that I think, you can tell that she really cares for her kids, even though Percy's just being a little meanie.
I mean, it's just weird. Percy goes over and does all this Greek god stuff in America while he's working for the ministry. Sorry. Continue on with your
point.
That's
a different episode.
Yeah, even when he goes against his whole family, pretty much, she still cares for him. I think that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's a good factor. Her love is universal, except with my third now counterpoint, which I've remembered.
Hermione I know where you're going with this.
Yes.
I felt the energy when he said Hermione. I felt the gasp of a third counterpoint.
In Goblet of Fire, Rita Skeeter in Witch Weekly wrote about Hermione betraying Harry, and Mrs. Weasley sent such a small amount of chocolate it was obscene. And Hermione felt cold-shouldered. And it took Harry, being the adult, took a 14-year-old who was about to face Voldemort, being an adult, in order to say, hey, we've never dated. You don't believe what they wrote, do you? And Mrs. Weasley went, oh, and never apologized. Not once.
She's probably
unless
Harry
didn't notice the apology.
Not in front of Harry.
Yeah, not in front of Harry. We're only seeing Harry's little blinders view, so it's very possible a conversation happened. Maybe even down the line when she saw that Ron and Hermione were getting serious, and then she's like, oh, by the way, back then it was really, it was bad of me. I'm so sorry. Maybe that was the moment before the wedding, where they make up and everybody's crying and everything's beautiful.
Please look after my son.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry. I believed Rita Skeeter. My headcanon for when Ron and Hermione are getting serious is during the beginning of Order of the Phoenix, when she's like, hey, will you go get Sirius to come downstairs?
I hate you.
Okay, fine. Gosh. Mrs. Weasley is the GOAT. I can accept it. Listeners,
Done.
please tell us who you think is your GOAT HP character. Because I'm going to go with a crazy one. Daedalus Diggles. No. I don't know who my GOAT would be. Yeah, think about it. I'll put it in the comments. You all should put it in the comments.
Yes. So on the note of, other people who may or may not be the GOAT, Percy's definitely not. I think we can all agree on that.
Yes.
But does he have maybe a little bit of truth to going to the house for Christmas? I mean, he's about a year and a half from his full 180, I didn't know what I was thinking, my family is everything moment. And I know that kind of comes more from the drama of the situation, but could there be a little bit of his wanting to see his family among him just doing a favor for the minister?
Oh, definitely.
I think so.
Yeah. People don't just have one motivation for things. They've got what they think is their motivation, and then all the other little random emotional things that are driving them towards it. So he may not even be sort of consciously thinking of it, but there's some part of him that is going in and saying it would be really nice to sort of be welcomed back into the family home on a Christmas day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that there's some real... I always view Percy as this very conflicted individual, where his... he's sort of zagged where everybody else is zigged into the Gryffindor situation, where everybody else is already doing sort of the most Gryffindor-y things. Bill's super chivalrous and brave. Charlie's super brave. Fred and George are so courageous in their attempts for business and putting themselves out there. And then Ron ends up doing this sort of hugely cool things when Percy's in his probably most formative years 5, 6, and 7 of Hogwarts. And so I view Percy as like this. He's trying to do his best to, as all the Weasleys do, sort of show up as the brightest among them. And the way that he does that is to lean into his more Slytherin side. He's really ambitious. And that's not a bad thing. What he does is he lets that ambition cloud his judgment. And he's given attention but not even attention, but prestige. I'm sure Fudge has made him felt great and good and almost like a father figure in a way that makes more sense. He's telling him the story of like, oh, well, you can be like this and wizards should be like this. And this is how you go up in the world. And he's just seen his father not struggle because Arthur's happy where he is, but he hasn't made a promotion. He hasn't been given a raise. He's not paid overtime. And I think that he's just
not succeeding in the eyes of the world.
Yeah, and so and Percy wants to succeed in front of the eyes of everybody. And so, f him now, but later they'll see how great I am. My family will see how great I am. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to see his family. Like, I think he's there to see them other than Fred and George.
Yeah. And Ginny.
I think he loves to see Ginny.
Bad for Percy.
Well, yes, but maybe after, she throws mashed parsnip in his face.
Yeah, right after that. And then he goes and tells his real dad Zeus all about it. I mean, Poseidon, whatever.
He probably hasn't quite adjusted to Ginny being a teenager as opposed to still being the little girl of the family.
Absolutely.
Probably.
Yeah.
Especially since, he kind of leaves the home around the time that transition really takes place.
Yeah.
And on the parsnip incident, I need
the parsnip incident.
more. I need more Ginny, Fred, George mess arounds. I just feel like they are so. I need more of just them interacting, the three of them, because I feel like she is kind of like the triplet, like the younger triplet of them in her. She's casting bat bogey hexes, and she's not really caring about people's thoughts, and she's joining the Quidditch team, and she's really good, and
Despite
exactly
them.
And she does things out of I'm just gonna do it because, and to spite other people in her life. And the fact that all of them like take credit for the parsnip is pretty great, because you don't know who actually it was. And it's almost like Fred and George kind of like skipped over Ron to go straight to Ginny, but only after she like proves herself, and then they adopt her into the shenanigans. But they like
it must be so frustrating for Ron,
right?
Because he's sitting there struggling with his like self-confidence, and all Fred and George want to see is somebody who can have a lot of fun and be self-confident and just kind of be a dick at times. And Ginny learns so quickly to do that, and Ron's there still sort of being like, but you guys turned my stuffed animal into a spider, I hate you, and also my best friend's super famous and it rankles me. Like, Ginny's just being there being like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna f your best friend, Ron.
Wow.
Got him.
Fred and George is selling popcorn.
Like, I'm pretty sure George was really bummed when Ron was the one who wanted to work with him in the joke shop instead of Ginny.
Well, maybe it's because Fred and George realize that Ron has Harry, and they're also just trying to mess with him.
You got the chosen one as your boy, as your best friend. You'll be fine.
Right. I think Fred and George have very much a sort of tease them to make them happier type of approach to life. That sort of you keep prodding, they'll harden up and they'll get over stuff and they'll be better off for it. And like we were saying earlier about the different approach to different kids, that works great with Ginny, because she's stubborn and contrarian like that, and she'll sort of, no, I'm going to get better just to spite you. But with Ron, it just makes him withdraw and be more morose, similar to Percy.
Yeah.
True. Oh, wow, that's an interesting thought. How much are Ron and Percy actually alike?
There are a lot of similarities.
I mean, think about the letter that Percy writes. Percy writes around, what is it, around Christmas time? No, it's right at the beginning of Hogwarts when Percy writes in the letter at Order of the Phoenix and says, I thought you would have taken what we might call the Fred and George way. And Ron gets so pissed that he's a little like Percy.
So interesting. Deep dive. All the personalities of all the Weasleys.
Indeed.
But also, I think with them kind of going, they're going back to Hogwarts after the holiday, and they are leaving Mrs. Weasley behind tearfully, and then they show up at Hogwarts and are coming inside, and Harry sees Hagrid right outside, and that's like the first thing that's really noticed is him seeing Hagrid and Witherwings, and I think that's really sweet, because he's kind of going from one family to another, one home to another, when he goes from the Weasleys to the castle with Hagrid. And I think it's really sweet also that Hermione thinks to visit Hagrid right away. We kind of think of Hagrid and Harry being the connection there, but Hermione really has her own relationship with Hagrid, and I think with with Wither Wings as well after their bonding in Prisoner of Azkaban. And I just think it's just kind of a cute... Yeah.
I got him good, but I punched him in the nose, so we'll call it even.
I just think it's really sweet, their connections to Hagrid, and how he's like the first thing that they all think about when they go back.
Well, it shows that home is not just a place, it's the people that are in the place. So it's not necessarily the burrow that Harry is attached to, it's the Weasleys. And it's not necessarily the castle that Harry's attached to, it's the people he knows there, like Hagrid, who have been so welcoming to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It just kind of like warms my heart, like Hagrid and Witherwings playing out in the snow, and then Hermione coming back in and saying that she was just visiting with them. It's just, yeah, I like that. And I also like Ginny Harry foreshadowing. It's probably one of my favorite things. There's, she's saying, "Oh, I can't meet with you guys because I have to go and see Dean," and he can tell, he knows her well enough to hear kind of the note of unenthusiasm in her voice, which I think is pretty interesting for Harry, Mr. like blinders, oblivious to everything, to actually like be paying enough attention to Ginny to know that. And it's kind of like we could almost write it off as like Harry hoping that she's being unenthusiastic if we didn't know it was true. But it's kind of interesting, and it's weird because Harry is so like blind to everything and everybody most of the time, so that the fact that he even noticed is kind of fascinating.
Well, and I trust Harry's observation skills. I don't trust his lack of observation. Do you see what I'm saying?
Not really.
Oh, like if he observes something, then he knows what it is?
Yes.
Yeah,
if he observes something. Yeah, exactly. If he notices disinterest, I'm like, yes, I trust that that's true, or I trust that that's close to the truth. I just don't trust what Harry isn't noticing. So like, I don't, it's really hard to know what's going on around him that he's not observing, because he seems rather tunnel focused. But when he is in the observation mode, it's really good. And it seems the more dangerous the situation, the wider his scope of observation becomes. So those climactic scenes where his senses are really on fire and his intuition is so good, you could really take in a full scope of what's happening. But when it's just Harry sort of like walking down the hallway, you have no idea if Romilda Vane is behind him with a love potion like needle, just about to stab him in the neck.
Another interesting image. I was going to say that it's one of the little notes that shows the aptly observed sort of effects of Harry's upbringing. Like there's been a lot of things saying that if you raise a kid in an environment where they're getting mistreated, they're getting punished for things outside of their control, that kind of thing, they're likely to be very aware of and very sensitive to subtle changes in people's demeanors, because they're hyper focused on recognizing, is this person about to turn on me or fly off the handle or something. So likewise, I think Harry is probably, when he, as you say, Sam, when he is actually paying attention to something, he is probably very tuned in to little details of it, but is quite capable of ignoring it entirely.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point.
Yeah.
There's so much literature that backs up like the hypersensitivity around abuse victims, whether it's emotional, verbal, or physical, and where you know sort of the weak spots in where things could fly off the handle. That's fascinating. I'd not thought about that with Harry's particular character, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, wow, that's a really good point. It's very interesting to how much is he gleaning because of that. Because he has to know, when is Vernon gonna get upset about the slightest thing and fly off the handle and he's going to be locked in his cupboard, or what, where exactly Dudley is at the moment, because maybe he's lying in wait for some Harry hunting or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a very good point, that he's probably just been trained in all that over time.
Yeah, and like Sam says, it makes a lot of sense that if he's paying attention to someone, he's going to be picking up on those sort of things. And I think there's plenty of cases where we see that. But also, if he's not actively paying attention, it goes straight over his head.
That's so true. And I think one thing that is funny is he's almost not paying attention. Kind of back to Harry and Ginny, he's almost not paying attention to himself, because I don't know if I think he really just doesn't know what he's feeling when he's like clearly falling for her. But he there's all these little mentions, and you can see Harry like falling in love with Ginny, and these little mentions, obviously some of them get a little bit more blatant, the dragon in his chest. And, it's like subtle, and you almost don't, like, he almost doesn't realize what's happening until it happens. And so it's like, he's as surprised that he kisses Ginny as like we are when we actually see it. 'Cause it's like that moment, you're not expecting it. So I think,
tricks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's almost like he is maybe not in denial, but like so unobservant of his whatever is happening in his own head that he just is like, oh wait, I do like her.
I almost wonder if he's having an inner battle where deep down he really knows, like he's fully conscious of the fact that he really likes Ginny. It's just that his conscious self is so fighting against that this is Ron's sister and that he's known her for a long time.
Oh, that's definitely it. That's definitely it.
And so he's like, when he's by himself, he's like, oh, damn, I really dig Ginny. She's super hot. And then Ron comes in the room and he's like, ha ha, that wasn't my thought. That was Voldemort. He's a Horcrux. Man, I don't even know what that is yet. Speaking of relationships, Hermione and Ron are really not doing too hot at this point in the junction of their begrudging marriage. Hermione has to witness the sloppy attitude of a 16-year-old boy named Ronald
Runil Waslib.
Wan Weasley. Yeah.
Wan.
I mean, Lavender. Yeah, Wan. You can say that again, Michael. I don't know. Michael, if you were 16 and your partner came up and just put their hands over your eyes and they were like, get through, would you break up immediately?
Yes. No, if I was that young, I'd be a little weirded out, but I'd probably have to talk and say something about like, can you not be so clingy? I think even with my mom, I'd be like, don't touch me. I was very unclingy at that point. So I'm sure it's super uncomfortable for Ron, who just can't break up with someone.
Because he has no spine.
Yeah.
Also, like, Lavender's peak high school first relationship. Like, it's so cringy because it's so real. Like, she goes straight for lovey-dovey nickname, hands over the eyes, overly enthusiastic, every single time they see each other. And I know people who have been this way, and I have experienced it.
You were people?
And
confirm nor
people
deny.
included you?
I have experienced it firsthand, and was the Ron in a certain situation.
Gross.
Being like, I'm late for class again. Can you let go? Can I go to class now? Like, but we were friends, and I didn't want to like ruin everything by being mean. So It's like, I get it. It's so awkward because it's so real. And I think reading it when I was a kid, like, you know, I think they were I'm trying to think timeline wise how old I was when this came out. But I feel like it's similar. And I think I was maybe not as
I think you were 13.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit younger, but I didn't really like realize it. I was like, oh my gosh, she's being so
you were 12.
crazy.
You were 12.
Yeah, so I'm like,
it was just before you turned 13.
So I'm like, okay, she's being so crazy. Like, who would act like this? And then you become like a 15, 16-year-old in a first relationship, and you're like, oh, okay, I see how this turns weird. And then you're an adult and you're like, oh gosh, it's so real. No, I don't want to read it anymore. Stop.
Yeah.
It's the paradox of vomit. You vomit as a 12-year-old, and then as a 15-year-old, you're like, oh, that's fine. And then as a 20-year-old, you vomit again.
What?
Yeah, I don't think being called Wan every day would be very, I don't think I could handle that.
It was kind of a side. But what do we think are Ron and Lavender's love languages? Because Lavender seems to be very into physical touch. She's a very tactile, touchy-feely person.
100%. Ron is a words of affirmation guy, if ever I've seen one.
For sure.
That tracks, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so her just like being all clingy all over him is doing nothing for him.
Well, and he's probably as anti physical touch because he grew up in a family of 45. Like they're
all boisterous and he likes getting some time to himself. Yeah. Going up the stairs means that he's getting shouldered by another man's shoulder the entire, like Bill's just clocking him, then Charlie clocks him, then Percy like tries to clock him but trips and falls down the stairs, and then Fred and George have just hidden 7,000 acromantula on the ceiling that trying to get him. And then Ginny's the one who's like actually full on tackling just to prove like he's had enough physical touch. Yeah.
He's good.
True. Very true. Very true.
I wonder what Harry's... Okay, listeners, for whatever character you want, go ahead and tell us what you think their love languages are in the comments. Because that's fascinating. And I would love to comment on that at some point.
That would be really interesting, for sure.
Also, Sierra, I wish for you and all the listeners to know that I know you quite well, and I have seen you through various relationships and stages in your life. And I am avoiding all jokes for the good of the pod.
Your sacrifice is no doubt appreciated.
If anybody wants us to do a Patreon roast of Sierra's love life, you can go to 3 Broomsticks, patreon.com/3broomsticks. And, and vote for it there. Or no, we'll put it on the website. We'll do a vote. Mm-hmm. Yes or no. Would like a roast of Sierra's love life.
No. The options are no and never.
So I think Harry's language is quality time, because he seems to like it when people make the time to spend time with him, and is upset when people aren't able to spend time with him, like, say, Ginny having to leave and go and spend time with Dean.
I like that.
I also think he's like, it's very close to gift giving as well, because Harry is so like the gifts that he gives are so impactful to him. Like even the knife that Sirius got, right? We get that line in Order of the Phoenix, like, oh, the knife that Sirius got me for my birthday or for Christmas, like melted.
Right.
That's sentimentality though, because if he would also express it by giving gifts, and I don't think we see Harry give a lot of really meaningful or well thought through gifts.
That's true.
I know many people whose love languages are gift giving who just love the one side of it.
Okay. That's true.
But I agree with you. Quality time, I think, is his number one.
For sure.
Number two, I would say, is gift giving, and words of affirmation are at the very bottom.
Yeah. Well, for him, words don't mean much.
He's had to give up on that. Yeah.
Correct.
How would he have been if he had grown up in a loving environment? Poor kid.
Yeah. Gross. Mm-hmm. All of it's gross. It also is. It kills me how careful Rowling is around raging teenage hormones. Like some sort of sexual act absolutely happened by the beech tree by the lake with Ginny and Harry, because Harry's like, one of my favorite memories. But like they're minors, so you can't just be like, yeah, they shagged for 6 hours out in public. Like, you can't say that.
This isn't the CW.
Thanks. Thanks, CW. You're the best. So it's, she's really quite careful, because, as noted, there were 12-year-olds named Sierra Powell reading this book over the summer. No, I think I really respect Rowling's ability to sort of walk that line, and I think she does it well.
Agreed.
But she nails the freaking lovey-dovey stupid Lavender scenes. And I think the movie got it right too, in terms of like just the spirit of it, with that one moment where she breathes on the glass and draws the heart, and everyone's just like, oh my god. Not your favorite, Michael? You'd break up immediately again?
No, that was just so I love that scene. It's funny.
It lingers for just like a second too long, where you're like, oh, yeah.
And everyone
That's
feels
just funny,
awkward.
just seeing him not be able to do anything with the relationship and end it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, I'm sure Harry was grateful that classes resumed, and that Ron wasn't just constantly covered by Lavender's body the entire time, because we do get a bit of normalcy once we get into classes. And for everyone arguing that Seamus is a rawhead who only likes fire, he actually produces water in charms.
Well, the fire thing is very much a movieism, isn't it?
Yes, very much so. Boom is not a word ever uttered by McGonagall in the books.
Yeah, I love. I kind of like, everything kind of goes back to like being normal, and Seamus is just like peak Seamus, and Flitwick is just hilarious in his little subtle way. I am a wizard, not a baboon, brandishing a stick is like the lines that he sets for Seamus, which cracks me up so much. Like it also makes me wonder if they pulled from this line when doing the movie Goblet of Fire of a bunch of babbling baboons, bumbling. What is it? A band of bumbling baboons, or whatever Fred and George decide to say 5 times fast. And but I think it's pretty great. But yeah, I mean, this chapter kind of goes into everything's normal. Characters are acting normal, and same issues or not issues, and we have a reaction to something new and exciting with the apparition, but everybody's kind of reacting the way that you would think. All the guys are really excited, and someone has some inside knowledge into it. Let's ask them all these questions, and just seems, Ron's nervous that he won't be as good as someone else, which is pretty classic Ron. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like that, we get back to Hogwarts, and then things kind of just resume, and everything's normal again right before things are not normal again.
Well, first of all, that line officially is, "I will not have you behaving like a babbling, bumbling band of baboons."
That's it. Thank you.
Is the full line on that one. But I wonder if Rowling was keenly aware that Harry was not going to return for Deathly Hallows. And so any sense of, and like, obviously she knows that Dumbledore's dying at the end of this. Spoilers for anybody who hasn't read the book. We don't need to do that on this podcast. But I wonder how much she's like, let's get in these sort of golden moments of kind of quintessential, quirky, quaint Hogwarts before we leave forever. It'd be fascinating to interview her and be like, how aware were you that going into this last semester that this was it for us as readers,
right? That
we weren't getting anything more, because I'm sure she didn't know that we were going to do the Fantastic Beasts movies a decade later,
right?
and see a little bit of Hogwarts in the second and third ones before they canceled everything and all was garbage and I hate myself. But I just love to know, like, how aware was she and did she try and cram in as much as possible? Because that line is not the best sentence in the world. It's dialogue from Ron followed by a huge descriptor of when Ron told him this, sneaking in the detail that Flitwick set Seamus these lines before Ron finishes the dialogue.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, this kind of goes to like, I feel like Ron always gets interrupted, and most of the time it's because there's an important something happening. Yeah. And so he like they're covering up something that Ron may reveal or is close to a fact or something like that. And it's an interest. I always miss them. And then when I am kind of reminded that that's a thing, I kind of go back and, oh, look, he was right. Or when Ron makes a joke about something, it usually ends up being true. And in some
Ron
weird
is on the
way.
money, but here's a distraction, so you don't actually notice.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And who the other people who are sometimes on the money would be the prophet, because Dumbledore, when Dumbledore and Harry finally get together, which is like the main point of this chapter, we're finally like at the meat. He gives the best burn. The prophet is bound to report the truth occasionally.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Just every once in a while, they say something that is accurate, and in this case, being that Dumbledore and Scrimgeour have had a fight. And Harry is finally finding out what that fight was about and that it was actually true. So, but I love Dumbledore's little sneaky snide comments about them and just the Ministry in general, and how he had to best, what's his name again?
Fudge?
No, the Auror Dawlish.
Oh,
he had to hex Dawlish again, and he's like, I didn't like doing it the first time, and I didn't like doing it again, which I think is pretty funny. I did it again with the greatest regret, which I think is really funny and very sad for Dawlish that he keeps being at the wrong end of Dumbledore's wand.
Can you imagine they're like, listen, Dawlish, Moody is 100% retired, and he's on Dumbledore's side. Shacklebolt is also on Dumbledore's side.
I love Shacklebolt.
Pretty sure Tonks is too. We would like you to do what? To spy on a foreign agent, like somebody out there, a Death Eater or something. No, on our own citizen. Oh, okay, that's weird. I have major qualms about that. Yeah, it's Dumbledore. Okay, do I put in like PTO now for the time that I'm going to be out?
Start your
for being sick, and like just know that I'm probably going to be out for 6 months after this. Why is that? Because I'm going to take a vacation in St. Mungo's. Silly Dawlish. I feel like the third time, if Dumbledore had a third time to go toe-to-toe, he'd be like, I don't have any regrets anymore. You're an idiot for following through on this.
You'd feel like, I feel like it would be one of those moments where Dawlish approaches Dumbledore and Dumbledore's like, really? He's like, no. And then just like walks away.
Yeah. Just walk.
Nope, I'm good. Just puts his wand down, scooches it across the floor. It's like, I'm good.
I'm surprised that Snape didn't just like conjure Dawlish to finish him off instead of killing him himself. Just be like, hey, Dawlish, here you go. Here's the opportunity you've been waiting for.
Dawlish would think it was a trap and panic.
I mean, in true Peter Sellers fashion, if Peter Sellers was playing Snape, he'd conjure up Dawlish, and Dawlish would Avada Kedavra and hit the wall of the school instead and rebound and kill himself. So If Harry Potter were told by Peter Sellers. So maybe it's best for Dawlish. I do really enjoy that we get this brief moment of camaraderie between Harry and Dumbledore. There's so often we get this teacher-pupil or like power holder and powerless Harry. Like we're about to get with Snape and Dumbledore in just a second. But with this true moment of camaraderie where they like are kind of bonding over the fact that the media sucks and Dumbledore has had his fair share of stupidness and Harry has had his fair share, and Dumbledore's kind of like got that little tiny crooked smile twinkle in his eye when Harry's like, oh, that's why you guys fought. And Dumbledore's like, ha, yeah, you figured it out. Nice job, buddy. It's so much more familial and encouraging than sort of anything else where Dumbledore's like, ooh, I've got memories. Let's go look and see if you can figure it out, Harry. And he just like stares there with his hands on his chin watching Harry.
Yeah, you
like,
could tell.
Have you got it? Do you know?
Yeah, you could tell when Dumbledore was getting teary when he was saying, yeah, I told the minister that I was loyal to Dumbledore.
Yeah. He does. He gets very touched by it, which is such an awesome moment.
It's an interesting distinction in the way that what people mean when they're saying you're Dumbledore's man, because in the context of what Scrimmager is saying, he's asking Harry to be a ministry lackey, but Harry is siding with Dumbledore, so he's like, oh, so you're just Dumbledore's lackey. Whereas Harry means it in a more relational way, in that he's making the choice that, you know, given the option between you two, I'm going to side with Dumbledore because I think he's got a better idea of what's going on and has a better plan for how to deal with it.
Which is wild, to be fair, that Harry is, that Harry is saying he's Dumbledore's man through and through. Because so far, if you look at it in book one, Dumbledore is like, the stone's safe, everything's fine, Quirrell's a good teacher, I know. And like Voldemort's literally living under Dumbledore's nose. And then book two is like, it's fine, I got sacked, it's cool, I'll leave anyways. There's not a major danger here. Also, I have no idea what
Does anyone hear an Irvin in the background?
I have no idea what's in the basement. I have no idea that it could be a basilisk, and that would make most sense because they all speak Parseltongue. Oh, and also, like, your godfather, he's a really bad dude. I myself gave evidence so that he didn't have to go to trial. By the way, no idea that Barty Crouch Jr. was Mad-Eye Moody. And also, I pretty much orchestrated your godfather's death at the end of book 5. Also, it's weird that I'm talking about your life in the series of books, but go follow with me, Harry. Now I'm going to tell you about Horcruxes, but I'm not going to tell you that you're one.
Oh my gosh.
This book was actually where I kind of started getting annoyed with Dumbledore, because he had this sort of grand statement. Whoops, sorry, bumped my microphone. He had this grand statement at the end of book 5 that, I'm going to tell you everything, Harry. I'm going to tell you everything I should have told you years ago. And he tells him about the prophecy, and then we get this book, and suddenly he's telling him more stuff. She skates over with the sort of justification that, oh, yes, that was facts, and now this is speculation. And yeah, nice one.
That is adult logic.
I'm 100% in the belief that that's not adult logic. That's not Dumbledore logic. That's Rowling logic.
I was just going to say, do you think that's J.K. Rowling just kind of coming up with that?
Blatant lies.
Yeah. I think that it's really hard to reveal more about Voldemort from Dumbledore's side if you don't come up, like, you as the author have to come up with a reason. And I think that's one of Rowling's most strong-armed moments in the whole series, where it's contrived.
Yeah, and it's just very frustrating. The whole sort of, you're saying that you're sort of bringing Harry in and making him more involved and telling him stuff about it, but at the same time, are you? And
it really, what it does is it really sets up the ending very well, where Dumbledore knows that Harry has to die. And he's not telling Harry that. And he also knows that Harry most likely will live if Voldemort dies because of the blood connection. But it's still really frustrating. I
can understand there being parts where, like the fact that Harry has to die, that there are strategic reasons why he doesn't want to make that specifically clear until it's necessary, and that's fine.
Right.
That is justified. But a lot of the other stuff, like all throughout this book, the whole thing with his hand and what the ring and the story of how he injured his hand and what is involved in that, he keeps sort of teasing Harry with hints of it about what's going to be the story of this, and it's a dramatic tale, but that's for another time. Or getting to the end of the message and waiting for Harry to ask, and then
the mouth organ was late. Only ever a mouth organ. Yeah,
right. Go to bed.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it's good. It's good for storytelling to set it up like this little mystery that keeps going. The fact that Dumbledore sort of is unable to remove his teaching nature from this, where he's like, I'm going to walk the student through this themselves so they come to their own conclusions. I'm not going to info dump. Like, you don't want that much exposition in a creative writing field. And yet it is still very frustrating that Harry's just sort of being sat through these memories, and Dumbledore's just trying to piece everything together with Harry and bring him along for the journey so that Harry can do this himself, which will help Harry with critical thinking in the next book. Like, there is a point to it.
Oh yeah, it's a very valuable way of doing it, and it does help to, like, in some ways, to reinforce Dumbledore's conclusions that if Harry sees the same memories and comes to the same thoughts, then that helps support Dumbledore's confidence in his decisions and what he gleans from it.
You know what would have also helped is Harry being excused from Defense Against the Dark Arts classes on an internship with Dumbledore, so that when Dumbledore travels so much during this whole year, that Harry can go with him and learn side by side about the dangers.
Yeah, but then people would ask questions.
That's fine. People are already asking questions. Dawlish is literally following Dumbledore because of the questions.
Like, there's a lot more scope for what is Dumbledore doing outside of time, and he's probably got more ways he can more easily slip away, so he might be going out twice as much as they know about. But if he had to take Harry with him each time, then you can't keep that quiet.
There's a lot of strolls with Harry in an invisibility cloak. And also, I think part of the reason why Snape works so well as a double agent is he never has to lie to Voldemort. He only tells him truths and conceals whatever the rest is around him. And so it'd be a lot more difficult to be like, I have no idea where Dumbledore's taking Harry all the time.
Right.
But they are leaving the school, exposing Harry to you guys constantly. So we might want to do something about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, kind of with Snape in mind, he's kind of the next topic of conversation here. And that is part of why I think these like half truths and things are why Harry is kind of so obsessed with this situation, because he knows he's not really getting all of the information. Like, he's and I almost wonder, why does Voldemort tolerate that? Because he's got to feel like he's not getting all of the information either, if Harry's feeling this way. And Harry's bringing up his lack of faith in Snape, Professor Snape. And here's my question. What is a better move for Dumbledore in this situation? Clearly telling Harry, I'm not worried about Snape and Draco's conversation. It's fine. It's not working. Should he tell Harry more? Should he explain that he already knows some of this, or maybe had already asked Snape to get this information, or that he has already talked to Snape about it, even if that maybe is a little bit of a white lie? Harry already suspects that it's possible that he already asked Snape to help, and that's why Snape is doing this. So wouldn't it be better to just confirm that? And then Harry would potentially back off a little bit, because at this point, Dumbledore knows that Harry isn't going to back off this topic. Yeah. He's going to continue to investigate anything that doesn't have a definitive answer. So, what is Dumbledore's better move in this situation with the conversation of Snape and Draco that Harry overhears? How does he allay Harry's fears and get him to cut it out.
I agree with the statement that Dumbledore should know by now that Harry isn't going to let things go, because we see that with several of the other incidents in the other books, that Harry keeps trying to, get an adult involved. He goes to McGonagall in the first book when he can't find Dumbledore. He talks to teachers in other books. He's always trying to say, hey, there's this problem that I can see and I'm just a student. Where are the competent adults? Can they deal with it?
I need an adult.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a perfectly reasonable thing for a 11 through 15-year-old to do.
Yeah.
And the adults are all like, it's nothing. When Harry is like, well, I know it's not nothing, so if they're not going to do anything, I'm going to have to. And this is the ultimate sort of going to an adult and saying, oh, Mr. Dumbledore, sir, there's this plot going on between the students and one of your teachers may be involved in it or may be working on your orders, I don't know. Could you care to elaborate on that situation and reassure me that this is in hand and that there is nothing to be worried about? And Dumbledore's like, nah. Not talking about gobstones.
As much as I've been joking around about why on earth would Harry be Dumbledore's man through and through, Dumbledore clearly has this idea of when somebody is ready, then I will divulge information, right? We know that right at the beginning of the book. Isn't it better for him to grow up away from all of that until he's ready? Mm-hmm. That's like Dumbledore's main mantra with Harry.
His judgment isn't so great.
He clearly does not...
It's like the snitch.
He clearly does not think that Harry is ready for any sort of nuanced understanding of the Draco, the Snape, the Dumbledore situation. And also, I think that Dumbledore's still concerned that Voldemort can get pertinent information at times. And so I wonder if he's concerned
from
about
Harry.
From Harry, through Harry's mind, through the Horcrux connection. And so I wonder if Dumbledore is really not keen about showing that, hey, I'm going to die in less than a year due to me opening up this ring because I wanted to see Ariana so bad. That, if Voldemort knows or senses weakness in Dumbledore, that he will pounce on the school. But in terms of what I think the real move is here, I don't know, because I don't know. Like, clearly Dumbledore's comfortable enough to talk about the Horcrux situation with Harry.
Right.
Which would then alert Voldemort to being like, hey, man, murder again and put your soul into a tissue and put it in the bottom of the ocean. Actually, I'm going to retcon a little bit. If Dumbledore's that comfortable with the Horcrux stuff, I guess I have major questions around why isn't he sharing with Harry some more of his motives?
Right.
The only one that I feel like is like, okay, this is still a definite no, you can't reveal this yet, is Snape's connection of not being a double agent. That information seems even more important than, hey, we're going after Horcruxes. We know about your Horcrux situation. We're going after them. Because Snape's position, now that Dumbledore is going to die, you cannot reveal. So there's no even chance of sitting down and being like, Snape, I need you to let me tell this kid. Let's walk through your memories all together so that he understands what's up about you. Like, there's just no chance of doing that. At the same time, hey, Dumbledore, fuck off with this Malfoy nonsense. Like, tell Harry what's going on.
Yeah, for real.
I think it would have been nice at least to explain to Harry, like, not just to put it off, but at least say something like, yeah, I'll look into it. At least give him some reassurance.
Exactly.
Like, not that he's just completely blowing him off.
And this is my point when it comes to, this is a power dynamic where Dumbledore becomes, I think, the most frustrating to me is when he is the power holder and Harry is powerless in this situation. And it seems like he has a lot of impatience for Harry's lack of respect for his power. And this is where it seems like it shows up in the old school stuff. He's already corrected Harry about saying Professor Snape, which is what we keep joking about. Snape's like, Snape! And he's like, Professor Snape. Harry was like, okay. But this is when it seems like it's a little old school. Dumbledore wants to be, in this moment, heard and obeyed.
Right.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
not talked about. And I think that's the actual wrong move with Harry here.
Yeah, I think well, and that's another thing that I feel like Dumbledore should know about Harry is Harry has had a lifetime up to this point of don't ask questions, of listen and obey. And so now he's finally in a place where he feels comfortable asking questions, which is huge, and can probe and has concerns that he feels really need to be brought to people's attention. And so then when they're shut down, it's almost like it's reverting to don't ask questions. And
completely agree.
Yeah, I don't like that. Anything that compares Dumbledore and Vernon is uncomfortable at best.
When Dumbledore talks about why he would be bad at being in power, like why he thinks he should be nowhere near the Ministry of Magic.
Yeah.
I think this is the thing that you point to.
Yep.
Right.
Is he expects such severe obedience, almost at a Voldemort level,
right,
of like, do what I say, don't do anything else. That it's much better that he is a teacher where the mode has to be different. You can't do that with students.
Right.
You can't just say follow or shut up. Like, you have to teach them through another way. And you would hope that would have translated to his other life, his Order of the Phoenix life, where he's a bit more understanding. But he becomes a military commander and do what I'm saying.
Well, he's also got the approach of, like, when someone isn't doing what he's saying or when he's disappointed with them, that he tends to mock them. And even if it is just sort of having a quiet smirk about Dawlish, or whether it's laughing at, like, the end of Prisoner of Azkaban when Snape is flying off the handle about, I'm sure Potter did it, and all that kind of thing. Dumbledore is just sort of, I think it describes him as smirking and saying that Professor Snape has had a very disappointing evening, or something to that effect. And it's all like, this is his right-hand man in a lot of ways, but he's still sort of, at his moment of weakness, treats him as saying, well, you're not doing great, are you? You're not as good as me, so I'm going to just sort of quietly make fun of you because I'm better than you. And that is an underlying character flaw in Dumbledore, that he's still got that sense of superiority.
Which is why Aberforth has broken his nose twice.
He literally says to Harry, I think you might even consider the possibility that I understand more than you did about like the whole situation when he explains it to him. I thought that was kind of like, I'm smarter than you.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong, but like...
He's not wrong, but it's also such a move.
Thing to say.
I mean, how many of us have had an adult do that to us when we were growing up, when we ask a question about something and it's like, I know better than you, shut up.
Many teachers.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's it does bother me. I think kind of on one point that we've touched a few times, the whole Professor Snape part instead of just Snape. I think I was thinking about that and why Dumbledore feels the need to correct Harry. And I think it's because he really he does fully understand the situation of the Snape and Harry relationship on all sides. Yeah. And he knows what Snape is going to have to do. He knows what Snape is going to become. He knows what's going to happen. And so he's just trying kind of like almost like a last ditch effort of like, just give him a modicum of respect, Harry. Like, he is a professor. Like, you might not like Harry clearly doesn't have a lot of respect for Snape, mostly because of the way that Snape treats him. But like, I think it's Dumbledore just really trying to be like, no, he is a professor. He is someone who should be respected. I respect him. You should too. And that, but just that little correction of like Professor Snape, just putting the honorific there, and I think loses its impact when you also have Snape going, sir, in order trying to correct Harry, and there's no need to call me sir, Professor, like that. That it's a little undercut because Harry has already lost the respect that even naming him Professor Snape would like have any sort of impact on. So but I was just thinking about that of like, how many other people does Harry not respect with that honorific, and why is it so important specifically with Snape? Because they do it to other professors all the time.
And he literally calls but to his face, I am like trying to go back through my head and being like, okay, so he refers to everybody by their last name with his friends all the time. That's
right.
Like
the
Gen X or millennial generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you know, he even like it was always Professor Lupin when he was the Defense Against the Dark Arts, and even at the beginning of Order of the Phoenix, he never was taught a single lesson by Mad Eye Moody, and Moody even has to be like, I don't know how much teaching I did, kid. Right after he says Professor Moody, yeah. So like. But also I think this is a generational gap thing, and also the fact that Dumbledore was born in like the 1880s and probably had you call everyone Professor beaten into him. Mm-hmm.
Respect your elders and betters. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up Mr. and Mrs. whoever. Like even my absolute best friend, her parents, I still feel they've told me repeatedly, like, you're, well, an adult now, you can call me by my first name, and it feels so uncomfortable. It's so weird. I can't do it. Even other people, even if I'm coworkers with somebody and they're 20 years older than me, it feels weird to just call them by their first name, because it's odd to me. So I don't know that it's necessarily like Harry being a different generation type of thing, but I think it's just really like he would never just say like McGonagall to Dumbledore. He would say Professor McGonagall, but with his friends, they just call her McGonagall and stuff like that. So
yeah,
true.
It's good point.
It's more like Harry. I don't know. It's almost like he's thinking of Dumbledore as like on his level, and Dumbledore is like, no.
Yeah, well, no. That's what Dumbledore has set up. That sort of we are having this more sort of collegiate conversation between equals rather than student and pupil,
right?
And then the student gets a little bit too much sort of uppity and gets slapped down again. Mm-hmm. But it also kind of feels to me it's a bit like, again, of Dumbledore being dismissive of how Harry is feeling about the situation.
Right.
Because as I commented, that Harry keeps asking about what's up with Snape, why is he like this, why do you trust him, or whatever, or do you trust him? And in this scene, like, Dumbledore gets a bit shirty with him and says, look, I've answered that question several times, stop asking.
Right.
But Dumbledore should be recognizing that, firstly, if a student keeps asking the question, then obviously you haven't answered it well enough, which gets back to our earlier discussion of, how do you actually respond to what they're saying in a way that's reassuring to them. Mm-hmm. But also he's trying to insist that Harry refer to Snape with an honorific in a private setting when the person himself is not present and is never likely to be told about this conversation, is ignoring any personal issues between the two of them, which I'm sure he knows about, given the amount that Snape sort of paces his office and rants about that Potter boy, just like his father, strutting around the school while he's strutting around the office. So it's all like saying, like seemingly presenting that, yes, you have issues with this professor, but they don't matter. And even outside of directly talking to them, you should be referring to them as professor. And that just, It's
kind of interesting that you guys had said that Dumbledore's almost in like a military commander, state. Because a lot of times, because I'm in the military, and a lot of times, like, we don't tell our subordinates some things. We just kind of give them orders, and they get really frustrated when they don't know why they're doing things, but you can't tell them because it's more important just to get a task done, which is really kind of what Dumbledore, I think, at this point is just like, that's not important right now. What's important is that you need to know and understand why we brought Professor Slughorn here and what I need you to do. I thought that was, I don't know, kind of interesting.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I think that's his Order of the Phoenix mode versus his teaching mode.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. That's very, that is real world example.
Yeah. And also too, how he says Professor Snape, I often, to like help my subordinates kind of teach them, hey, you need to still respect, you might be buddies with other people, but you need to respect, you know, if they're of a higher rank, and address them as so. And that just helps teach. So maybe like he wants Harry just to be like talking, like when he's talking to his other student or other classmates, hey, address him as Professor Snape, and kind of remind himself that.
That's a good point. Yeah, because if Dumbledore corrects him kind of enough times, then perhaps when Harry goes and talks to Ron and Hermione, he'll say Professor Snape, and then it'll kind of catch on. And
which he obviously won't, but
it could be the hope, though.
Just some level of respect for him, because in the future, you know, he's probably gonna. You don't want him just to feel, you know, he wants to have some level of respect,
right?
At least for Harry towards Snape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, an interesting phrase that kind of jumped out at me when diving into the memories was right after speaking about Snape and Malfoy. We go into the memories and we hear that the moment the Sorting Hat touched his head, Riddle was sorted into Slytherin. As Dumbledore's explaining it. And that is the exact phrase that is used when Draco is sorted into Slytherin. And I thought that was a really interesting tie that also kind of links the two conversations, going from Draco to Voldemort, both of them Slytherins from the moment the Sorting Hat touches their head. And it's a clear line between the two and tying them together, especially right after Harry has just expressed concerns that Malfoy is a Death Eater and that something is going on. And it really, like, it ties them together. And it's like this hint almost that, yes, there is something going on between the two of them. Look how similar they are. Why wouldn't they be?
So what you're saying is Dumbledore should be a podcaster because he's good at those sexy transitions.
So if you recall, Sierra, earlier in this conversation, we were talking about goats and Molly being the goat. And you and I both had the exact same thought when Michael brought up Hermione and Mrs. Weasley, and you went, ugh, and I went, aha, in our head. And I wonder if Dumbledore is having the exact same situation that you did, where he's like, all right, no, it's fine. Draco's fine. It's all cool. It's all good. It's fine. And then he goes in and you can just see Harry going, oh my God, the parallels. And he's just sitting there with his hand on the bridge of his nose going, oh no.
Yeah, I wonder if he like kind of put it together as he was saying it, but at this point also, like, Dumbledore knows that Draco's involved. I mean, he knows the plot and that he's everything, and so but I almost wonder if he's like, oh no, did I reveal? But the chances of Harry remembering anything about his first sorting ceremony that other than having to do with him, Ron, or Hermione is probably pretty slim. Although, you know, he's obsessed with Draco, so maybe not.
Harry remembers like 9 people in his whole class.
Right.
It's like Hannah Abbott, Susan Bones, Draco, Ron, and Hermione.
Yeah, it is interesting, but I really enjoy the description of the memory the description that Dumbledore is giving of like everything that's happened between the last time that we see Riddle and this next memory, because I think it's an interesting way to convey a lot of information in a short amount of time, but also with these little clever word plays. So, the moment the Sorting Hat touched his head, but then also he mentions that Riddle he didn't worry about charming. He didn't try to charm me as he tried to charm the other professors. And I think that that's an interesting word choice, because it's not win over, befriend, anything like that. He specifically uses the word charm. And so, JK is specifically using the word charm, which every time I read it, I always kind of do a double take of like, wait, did he actually charm them? Like, with a wand and magic, charm these people into liking him? Or is it just, the winning personality that we know he had? And I think, not that I have any evidence to the fact that Riddle was going around and actually charming people into liking him. I wouldn't put it past him. And I wouldn't be surprised if it got him what he wanted, to have him actually going around and charming people with magic to kind of fall in line with whatever he needed them to do, because he is so manipulative. So I didn't know that. I thought that was just really interesting. Draw my attention to that again.
We definitely see in the later memory with his interactions with Slughorn that he's laying on the flattery fairly thick. So he's definitely using that in some cases. But I'm trying to remember, doesn't one of the things that when Dumbledore first meets him at the orphanage, and among the many things that he says that made Dumbledore think, ooh, I don't know about this kid, didn't he say something to the effect of, I can make people do things if I want them to?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, that definitely supports that idea, Sierra. So I think you might be onto something.
I think charming could probably also be something like manipulate. Like, he's very manipulative. Like, just based off of, like, I know he can... He's kind of like Harry, I would say, in the sense of like, when he cares about that person, he can observe, and he's really observant, but only when he wants to be. But I would say for Tom Riddle, it's more of like he can be manipulative towards that person. So,
yeah.
So maybe he's bouncing between the two. Slughorn, he figures he can just charm with flattery, and, laying it on thick. But then with maybe some other people who are a little less challenging and maybe wouldn't be won over by compliments and gifts and things, then he's actually resorting to magic.
Using what works.
Yeah, true.
And with Dumbledore, too, he knows that he can't really
do either.
He can't do either. So he just kind of... He just kind of is.
Right. Which I think is interesting. It's almost, from a young age, he already recognizes that Dumbledore is kind of the big, well, in his mind, the big bad that he needs to overcome.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating to think of it from that point of view. We hear, the only one he ever feared and things like that, but that it really came on so early because he realized he divulged too much. And totally. That he read Dumbledore so clearly in that first meeting that he knows he's not going to be able to pull one over on him. I think that's fascinating. And also, knowing that, the gumption for him to then put the curse on the school and, have hide the diadem right under Dumbledore's nose when he goes to the castle to ask to be a professor, I think that's pretty gutsy considering what he thinks of Dumbledore. And, he has to know that Dumbledore is kind of knows he has an ulterior motive.
Totally. I think he remember Harry gives this sort of expositional thought about why Voldemort chose to hide the diadem at the school, because he says Voldemort's so egotistical that he thought that he was the only one who could have found
Right.
the secret of the Room of Requirement, which is why he goes and puts things. Never mind the fact that there's thousands of students worth of hidden stuff in there.
Well, it could be just that he thinks he's the only one that actually like understands what he's found and can use it purposefully, because even Dumbledore says that he had stumbled upon it, but it was full of chamber pots. So it's, you know, it's like most people seem to find the room when they just need to hide something, like Dobby, other things. Also, just thinking of this, another note on Voldemort doesn't think that anybody who's not a full-blown witch or wizard isn't worth a damn, because Dobby knows what he finds and understands it.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's an interesting thing of, he's so egotistical. He thinks he's the only one to be able to understand exactly what he's found and to be able to use it for his own ends instead of stumbling upon it like everybody else.
Dobby's in there with a full hospital setup to help out Winky.
Right. Which Dobby's...
Trelawney's going in there to just like throw away some sherry bottles.
Of all the uses.
I honestly think that that's one of the weaker moments of like trying to explain why Voldemort hid it at the Room of Requirement. I think that there's other ways to go with, but so be it.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know what must have been really disappointing to Voldemort though is how his wizard lineage is really crappy. Like he doesn't get his good looks from there, and he doesn't get his power because Morphin's holding a knife and a wand. Like, is he so unconfident in his ability to cast a spell? And like his mother Merope couldn't even save herself with magic. Little does he know she can't also use magic, period. Really. Right. And when she's stressed out around abusive dad and abusive brother.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, he must have like a really skewed view of how his family works, but then also how magic works, I guess, because he thinks he thinks that his mother must have been the Muggle in the relationship because she couldn't save herself. And I don't fully get that, because I mean, other than like Nicholas Flamel and his wife Pernell, who has not died? Like, who other than currently living people? I mean, but he somehow thinks that he's going to be able to overcome death and that she couldn't have died. Is it just that maybe she died young and the causes could have been something prevented with magic? But like, it just seems so odd to me.
He's not basing it on like knowledge of famous people in the wizarding world or the actual history of stuff. It's just, I mean, think about when you were growing up as a kid, because we all grew up in the Muggle world. Sorry to spoil anyone's illusions there. What did you think about magic? You know, it's magic. It can do anything.
Right.
That's the sort of mindset you have about it. It's a fantastical thing and it's not real, but it can do anything. And here's this kid who's thinking, hey, maybe it is real. Maybe I can do this. The possibilities are endless. Well, my mother must have sucked at it because look what happened to her.
Right.
So you can, I mean, it's a brutal and survival of the fittest type of mindset, but you can kind of understand where he's coming from, and that coming from a Muggle situation. Yeah,
I think this is a sort of twisted childhood fantasy that he actualized, because it's this idea of like, okay, I'm a wizard, I knew something was special about me. Oh, she died, she must have been the Muggle one. And then he realizes but then he realizes that there are ways to save yourself from death. And as a teenager, still with, his brain's not done growing until he's 28. Like, his executive functioning is not good, even though he's brilliant. Like, the sort of teenage fantasy, he actualizes because he's that talented. And I think that, had he gotten into his 30s or 40s or 50s before doing the Horcrux thing, he might have outgrown that. But by the time he's actually an adult. He's already created at least one Horcrux.
Right.
He's already done the work to try and stay alive. And so now that's everything. That idea becomes an addiction. And now, there's that famous line in Get Him to the Greek where he's like, being on drugs is way better because that's such a weird movie to quote. Anyways, Russell Brand's character is like, when I was on drugs, it's way better because then my only worry is where does the next drugs come from? But when I was off of drugs, I had so many more worries. Am I going to be a good father? Am I a good husband?
Right.
And I think that's just what Voldemort has become. He's just become obsessed with the power to keep himself alive.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. To have it stem from he developed this obsession and can't let go. I mean, it's kind of like Snape too. He's developed an obsession with Lily from a young age and can't let
Dumbledore
go of it.
with the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, and Dumbledore with the Deathly Hallows and his ties to Grindelwald and everything. And I think so many characters in these books, so many adult characters in these books they were like all their kind of current information and choices are informed by whatever obsession they had as a child or a teenager or something like that. And I think that's an interesting view, especially compared with the adults that don't have that. There are also plenty of adults who aren't completely taken over by who they were as a child or a teenager. But I feel like more often than not, Sirius's whole thing is he wants to rebel against his family, and that stemmed from when he was a teenager and went into Gryffindor and everything. And, Lupin's always going to be defined by him becoming a werewolf at a young age. And just so many, even Barty Crouch Jr., was a teenager when he went to Azkaban. And so it's like everybody's entire view of adulthood is just whatever was going on when they were a teenager. And it's kind of sad because there's so much life after that, that they're just stuck.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of like Malfoy.
Totally.
True. Mm-hmm.
I wonder, just with Morphin coming to bring back to the chapter, I wonder when he died. Because Voldemort's all about not dying. But boy, does he not mind other people dying.
Yeah, true.
Including his own kin.
Yeah.
Like, he's so disappointed in, all right, so Dad was actually the Muggle. I'm going to kill him. Mm-hmm. And then, wizard side, you guys live in a shabby cottage.
Right.
And you have no power.
Yeah.
And you've done nothing with your lives.
Right.
And then he just abandons him, implants this memory of him killing, and Morphin dies in Azkaban.
Mm-hmm.
But we already know that Voldemort doesn't have any sort of value on...
I think he would have killed him, though. I think he would have killed him if he could have. But since he was underage, he had to somehow manipulate the situation to where he wouldn't be caught.
Yeah, I think he needs to have somebody to blame, right?
Right.
The wizards are going to do a much further inspection on the whole thing, including finding out, Tom Riddle Jr. I wonder if Tom Riddle Sr. was his dad.
Right.
Like, he needs to have the close family member be the blame for why, or else they're going to come straight for Tom Riddle Jr.
Well, it doesn't even seem like they put that together.
No, they go straight for a guy who's already attacked him. Like Dumbledore spells it out. It's a really good alibi.
Well, you've got the Ministry has come in because of the underage magic detector going off.
No, because I think they mentioned that that's not the case because because the magic takes place in and around a known wizard's home, they don't know that it's an underage person doing the magic. They just know that magic happened.
Not at the Gaunt Shack, but when he kills the Riddles, that was at their house, which isn't a known wizard residence.
It's because he used his wand, I think. Morphine's wand.
So the way that underage magic thing works, they don't they know when magic is cast, but not who the perpetrator is. So they know when magic is cast in an area where it's not supposed to be. So they immediately go and try and track down the wizard who lives in that vicinity. So they know there's no wizard near Harry Potter. So when there's magic that is performed around Harry Potter, they go and get Harry first.
Right.
Which is why the Daubery hover charm works. And so they know that magic is being used around Tom Riddle Sr. because, magic has just happened there. And so
did you mean senior or junior?
I mean senior. They know that magic has happened around Tom Riddle Sr. And that's not supposed to happen. There's not supposed to be magic in that Muggle household.
Right.
But so then they go looking for the next closest wizard, which they know is Morphin. He lives right there. So they don't even have to think about Tom Riddle Jr. They just, they go and check on Morphin, who has the wand, because Tom Riddle Jr. uses Morphin's wand. Voldemort uses Morphin's wand to kill. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They do the wand check, and he has a boastful confession.
Right.
And that's it. It's brilliant. It's a really good failsafe.
Right. Interesting, though, I mean, because Morphin has his wand and his knife. And I know that Voldemort obviously would prefer to use magic to kill his remaining Muggle family members. But how good of a cover-up would it be to use the knife?
Yeah.
If, then it's like, maybe it could have been even more people. Oh, look, it's also Morphin's knife. Oh, look, he's kind of crazy. He doesn't really do all that much magic. I feel like it would track more, especially if Morphin isn't necessarily known for being adept at magic, that, he's got his penchant for cruelty and he's attacked Tom Riddle Sr. before, but if he's not, I guess this kind of goes to like, how good at magic do you have to be to cast Avada Kedavra? Like,
you just have to really...
Harry can't cast Crucio unless he really means it. So it's almost like, I don't know. It's just an interesting...
But are you suggesting that a wizard as prejudiced as Voldemort is going to use a Muggle method of killing someone?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I am just saying it probably would have covered his butt even better.
Yeah, because
not that this didn't work perfectly anyway, but... Right, exactly.
He could have Avada Kedavra and then magicked a knife to just slit their throats open.
Or something, yeah,
Yeah.
But he's never going to think about that. I guess this is a separate podcast of how to get away with magical murder.
How to get away with magical murder.
What's kind of interesting is that the Ministry of Magic really didn't do a good enough investigation. They kind of just were like, yeah, this guy just killed him because he turned himself in. Like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and like you can see in the already the sort of relations around Muggle crimes are not great. Like they treat Arthur's office terribly for biting keys and puking toilets and stuff. So the magical law enforcement squad, which already doesn't work with Muggles that much, probably is even just as prejudiced, especially, when you're going back, 50 years or so?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, these Muggles got murdered. That sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well.
We got the guy that did it, so case closed.
Right. Yeah, and then he goes to Azkaban, and kind of back to your question, Sam, about when Morphin died. So Dumbledore's already searching for information about Riddle, which means that it has to be between Chamber of Secrets and Half-Blood
When he's handed the
Prince.
Horcrux. Yeah.
Exactly. When he found the first Horcrux, you would assume he didn't start off right away. He's still kind of investigating. So there's only it was really recent. It's like in the past 3 years that he would have died. Which also means he would have, obviously he would have overlapped with Sirius, Bellatrix, all the ones in the breakout. And it's interesting to think about, like, obviously we don't know too much about the inside of Azkaban, but you can hear others yelling in their cells, we know. And you would have to assume they have at least some sort of connection, maybe even just with the cell next to them. So you would think that Death Eaters, especially someone like Bellatrix, would maybe revere Morphin for being related to Voldemort. Not that Morphin would have necessarily known, but if he had spoken enough, it could have probably come out somehow. And or even just that Morphin knows he's related to Slytherin, so he could have said that. And, he's muttering constantly about losing the locket, which is Slytherin's locket. And so you would think that...
And his worst memory.
Right, exactly. So it's like, if Death Eaters find out someone in the Riddle or even just Slytherin family... it was there and like maybe could have figured out who Voldemort was, Tom was, it could have caused some issues once everybody's released, people knowing what, Voldemort's real history was, if Morphin had the wherewithal to actually speak more than just babbling about the locket.
Yeah.
Think about it, though, from the Death Eater's perspective. I mean, I don't imagine there's a lot of socializing in Azkaban.
Right.
They don't get to sort of run around the yard for an hour every day or anything.
They don't go for a nice swim.
No.
in the North Sea.
So why would you pay any mind to the ravings of this sort of smelly, hairy, dirty prisoner in another cell?
True.
Who's muttering something about a locket, or if he's muttering anything that you can hear that, or is muttering in Parseltongue, which you can't understand.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Voldemort told the Death Eaters about his lineage, because he talks about when it is resurrection,
mm-hmm.
about being having to use the bones of his filthy Muggle father.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's going to great lengths to keep it a secret.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that Hitler parallel, right?
Right.
It's the Aryan race is the best. Hey, you're saying that as a brown-haired dude,
right? Yeah.
The hypocrisy of
Shut up! It's aspirational.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will dye my hair soon.
But that raises the other question I had about it, though, is that both of this memory, and I look back at the other one, and all the memories the only time that Morphin isn't speaking Parseltongue is, I think, when Voldemort first comes in and he screams "You!" at him,
mm-hmm.
because he thinks he's the Muggle. So who has translated this for Voldemort? For Dumbledore?
Oh, that is such a good question.
Dumbledore seems to understand what's going on in these conversations, and yet he's not asking Harry.
Right.
I think the implication is that Dumbledore's deductive reasoning is so skilled that he is perfectly fine with understanding what has occurred without needing a full translation. Because the memory is essentially like, hey, he shows up, they talk for a second, and then he blacks out. And you can see, and all Dumbledore needs is the information that Tom Riddle, to prove that Tom Riddle Jr. showed up at his
counterpoint,
uncle.
I think Dumbledore quotes Morphin talking about being that Muggle up at the big house.
Oh my gosh, does he?
I think he does.
He does in that chapter.
What?
Then Dumbledore is secretly Voldemort's brother. You heard it here first.
So is Dumbledore a secret Parseltongue or Parselmouth?
Yep, 100%. Or he's translated, because somebody at some point, I'm sure, has written down the language.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was other things about it that it
says,
couldn't be. But
the big house over the way.
I mean, if Ron can figure out how to say open,
right,
based off of Harry's sleeping.
I was gonna say Ron.
I'm sure Dumbledore in his 110 years has figured out how to say, hey, big house.
I almost wonder if this is a element of the magic of a pensive, where it is accessible because it is in an objective way. You can look around, notice things that you hadn't seen before. If it has some sort of a translation feature of it will make everything in the memory accessible to those who hear it. Because you could look around and be like, oh, shoot, that guy sitting over there, I didn't notice him the first time that I did this. Well, he's the guy, like you could figure out so many murder mysteries just from like sticking your stuff in a pensive and looking around. So maybe that's part of it.
Supporting evidence would be, we're in Snape's memory and you hear the entire conversation between James and Sirius and Peter and Lupin, which includes
what he could not have heard.
Yeah.
What he could not have heard, which is like, you walk around with a werewolf once a month quiet. Like Snape. Yeah. Snape is not hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
The counterpoint would be in the previous memory with Bob Ogden's memory that Dumbledore says to Harry, "You can understand them, of course, Harry."
Yes.
And that's when Harry realizes that it's Parseltongue that he's hearing.
I think it also is based off of, like, because it is Morphin's memory, so maybe it's based off of how he translated it. So he has Parseltongue
because it's
so.
I bet you're right. I think you're 100% on it, Michael. That is a great point. Which is
because Bob Ogden
it's Morphin's memory,
know.
so Morphin understands it. Yeah, but Bob Ogden doesn't. All right, we solved it.
Wow, there you go.
Listen to our podcast.
So it's because Dumbledore
mysteries.
got the memory by using legilimency on Morphin, who could understand it.
Right.
Or Dumbledore is doing what Harry wishes he could have done to Pavarti and just opened up the back of Pavarti's head. And so Dumbledore's just like legilimenting Harry the entire time in real time. No, I'm sure it's because it's Morphin's memory. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
What has that got to do with Parvati?
Yeah, what was Pavarti? What was that?
Okay. So in Order of the Phoenix, during the History of Magic, OWL, right before Harry falls asleep and sees Sirius getting tortured.
I know what you mean now.
Harry I think he's sitting behind Pavarti or Lavender or some named character that we know. And he's like, I wish that I could just legilimens.
Right.
Open up the back of her head and legilimens the answers out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there we go.
That was a deep cut. I apologize.
I was very confused. I thought this was like something that happened in the DA or something. I was like, where are you pulling this from? So confused. Okay, this makes so much more sense.
Harry was trying to learn to dance.
You don't remember the scene where Harry has Pavarti say afterwards and takes a cleaver to the back of her brain and just like acupunctures memories out of her?
Oh my gosh. Oh boy. She would not deserve that.
Lavender would.
But speaking of what people deserve.
Yes, but speaking of what people deserve, it's very interesting that Dumbledore does not believe that Morphin deserved what happened to him, considering how awful Morphin is and his cruelty and how terrible of a person he was, whether or not that was how he was raised, kind of besides the point. But he doesn't think that dying, having been blamed for murders he didn't commit, was a fitting punishment, even though, Morphin's boasting proudly of this memory, which you have to imagine Voldemort can implant the memory, but he can't make him be really proud of what he did. Like, that's Morphin.
I think this is where how much Gandalf coded Dumbledore comes into play. If you remember in the Lord of the Rings, either the book or the movie, Frodo says to Gandalf, "I wish that Bilbo had just killed Gollum when he had the chance."
Yeah,
and Dumbledore, I'm going to butcher the exact quote, so I won't try. But to paraphrase,
Many
he essentially
who die
says,
deserve life. Can you give it to them? Do not be so quick to deal death and judgment.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Yes, that's it. Precisely. And I think that's the goodness, right? Like, people don't deserve to be blamed for anything, right? Like, Sirius was blamed for something that he wasn't. He didn't deserve that. The same principle stands for Morphin. Even though Morphin is abusive, perhaps even like more so than we see, right? We don't know how the Gaunt family becomes so gross.
Messed up.
Yeah, messed up. And there's obviously some closets with skeletons in that cottage, but even so, like, he doesn't deserve he deserves the fate that he should be taken to justice to, but not anything else. And I think that's a really strong point for Dumbledore, and I think that's a really strong point for Harry as well.
Yeah. I like it. I just think it's interesting to pull that commentary in at this point.
Well, Harry's been punished enough for things that weren't his fault that he has a very strong sense of, no, if you're going to be punished, it should be for something you've actually done.
Right.
Yeah, it's this very strong motif of righteous justice is what should be served, and nothing more, nothing less. With always a chance for redemption.
Right.
I will say, on a funnier note, I remember a while back there was a theory that Morphin died because Dumbledore killed him.
Oh gosh.
In the cell. And so it's like, oh, and then he died later. Oh yeah, how'd he die? And it just like shifts into Dumbledore's memory of like choking him out in the cell.
Oh boy.
But then we get to the really good stuff.
Yes.
Right after this, which is the bastardized version of a memory in which we may know much, but not today, Harry.
Classic.
It's really cool. I mean, you know, the brilliance of Half-Blood Prince is in two different spheres to me. There's this mystery of who is the Half-Blood Prince, and Harry sort of becoming really good friends with a guy that may have been, had Lily survived and they had worked things out, quite a close, almost uncle-like figure to him, Snape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's seeing the brilliance and the mastery, and it's, you know, we paint this glorious picture of who Snape is without even realizing it, versus we are also painting a phenomenal picture of Voldemort, and we know it.
Mm-hmm.
And here we get a sense for Slughorn as well. This is what's so great about subtext and Rowling's writing this late in the stage, is we get to know so much more about the fact that Horace Slughorn tried to give Dumbledore a fake memory about something he's really ashamed of. He thinks he's good enough to dissuade Dumbledore, which is so egotistical. And also we get this amazing imagery, this little teaser of real facts before the false stuff happens. We get Lestrange. We get Avery, these Death Eaters. We know who are going to become so much a part of Dumbledore's, not Dumbledore's army, but Voldemort's army, the Death Eaters. It's brilliant. It's a really cool use. And it's so frustrating because it lives off on this little cliffhanger, enigmatic, stupid Dumbledore moment.
Yeah, and I think even just the mention of these Death Eaters, it's very interesting to me because there's an Avery during Snape's time, which we kind of have to assume is Avery Jr.
Gotta be.
And so these Lestrange and
Unless
Avery,
he got held back a lot of years.
that would be pretty impressive. So
Marcus
I almost
Flint has nothing on Avery.
But it begs kind of a further question of, you know, we're assuming Lestrange is not Rodolphus or Sebastian as well, because, well, that would be a really awkward age gap with Bellatrix, but I guess it's not completely out of the question. But we kind of are forced to assume that these are the fathers of the future Death Eaters, Lestrange and Avery, and so. Just how many of Voldemort's original team are around? I mean, it seems like he's almost just surrounded by the children of his former classmates, like his former Death Eaters. It's all their children. So, but also all of them had children, and I feel like Voldemort is maybe not one to be like, yeah, go start a family, guys. That sounds great. So,
if only Mad-Eye Moody had a picture of the original Death Eaters to show her, too.
Right, exactly.
Like, and these guys died here, and these guys died here, and I killed this one and that one.
And these two hooked up, and that's where these guys came from. And
right. I want to know what happened to all the original Death Eaters and why we're with, you know, stage 2.
You know what's frustrating is that we were supposed to get a bit in in movie 4 and 5 of the Fantastic Beasts series. It was rumored, and supposedly we were going to get some of the Voldemort origin story going on while Grindelwald and Dumbledore's line was going on, because Dumbledore is still at school during this time. Like, it's Chamber of Secrets time. It's all of it. So it would have been really interesting to meet, like, hey, the Lestrange line is supposedly dead. Like, where does Bellatrix's husband come from?
Right.
Yeah.
But alas, we'll have to just wait for those movies to get created. Never.
Never. I know, unfortunately. Yeah, but I do think it's very interesting.
It's kind of strange.
But it also kind of tracks with Voldemort's...
With Malfoy, at least.
Yeah, exactly. With him recruiting kind of younger and younger, you know, he's recruiting the the youngest black family. Yeah. And it's, now it's kind of making me think of, child soldiers and how well they can be manipulated. And it's easier to do that.
I wonder too how much it annoyed him that Frank Longbottom and James Potter would not join him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because they're registered with the pureblood people. Same with Arthur.
Yeah. I wonder how far. I mean, do we know how far?
But the Weasleys
back?
Already had their reputation as blood traitors before Arthur, though, didn't they?
That was my question. How far back does that go?
I think. Oh man, I forget exactly what it says. It's like 12 generations. When they first started the registry, you had to go back 12 generations of pureblood or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so it was this totally fabricated thing where before those 12 generations, like as long as you were 12 generations, it was fine. But if that 13th generation, you had a Muggle lineage, it didn't matter. Right. So it's, it's just silliness, obviously.
It's all about the qualifiers.
Yeah, exactly.
Eugenics normally is. Mm-hmm. It's such a good memory, and it's so interesting to see how Slughorn sort of tries to fabricate it, and we get the message, the
fog,
the little bit of Horcrux and whatever. I'm so the most maddening thing here is Voldemort acts about Horcruxes, and Harry doesn't immediately go to Hermione and be like, "Hey, tell me about Horcruxes."
Yeah.
Like, you'd think at this point he would know that if Voldemort was asking about something in a memory, he should go and figure out what that is.
Right.
He's probably expecting Dumbledore to explain it.
But why is Harry such a waiter?
Yeah, this is one of those instances where he's completely oblivious. And just doesn't know how to use people that are actually, like, around him. Like Hermione.
Yeah. Like this is a moment where we understand and Dumbledore understands the significance of the word Horcrux, but Harry doesn't at this point, and so it's just to his mind, it's just okay. Young Voldemort is having a conversation with Slughorn about something, and it gets dismissed, and then so he has no idea what the point of this memory is, and it probably seems even more inconsequential to him.
Yeah.
What is the key thing there that Dumbledore is being so pumping it up about? What's the big deal?
Yeah. Yeah, because that word is a Jello word. It exists, like he sees substance, but it is unformed as of yet.
Mm-hmm. But also, like, why wouldn't you think? I mean, why would you think that? So Slughorn is bastardizing this memory anyway. If he really doesn't want anybody to know, or specifically Dumbledore, to know what the content of this memory was, why would he leave the word Horcrux in it?
Oh, so there's the obvious change, but also the subtle change, which is the word Horcrux was replaced with something else.
Yeah, I mean, replace that or cut it off right before he asks or something. I mean, I just feel like it's...
Slughorn's too smart for that. He knows why Dumbledore's after that memory. He knows... He knows he need like what the issue is. So he's like, oh yeah, I'll show you when we talk about Horcruxes. But I'll tell you what, I didn't
tell him anything. Yeah,
I was the model of modesty, and I had a modicum of intelligence during this time to say no. Mm-hmm. But he definitely made 7 Horcruxes. Just I don't know how I know that, but now you know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing for Harry to go on. And it will always bother me that he wasn't like, Voldemort's after Horcrux. Let me drop the Draco thing for a literal half second where I already have Creature and Dobby looking after Draco at all moments. Mm-hmm. Let me go over to Hermione and just be like, hey, what do you know about Horcruxes? And I hope that's not offensive.
I don't know why he didn't even ask Dumbledore, what's a Horcrux?
Yeah.
Pretty sure he doesn't even. He doesn't even ask him. He's just
Dumbledore kicks him out of that office so fast, though.
This is true.
And his earlier questions all got unanswered. And
Dumbledore's like, I got a 6 a.m. meeting with Scrimgeour. I got to kick this guy. If we do Horcruxes now, it's never going to end.
Bedtime.
I got to tell him he's one. I got to show him what pig to slaughter means. Like, we got to bring a live pig in and show him exactly how it works.
Mm-hmm. No, just turn your desk into one.
Oh, yeah. They're hard to transfigure, though. So you can go back to our pigs episode and listen all about that.
Do you think there's a reason for him to kicking him out really fast? Like right after?
I think it's because Dumbledore doesn't want to answer too many questions. He wants to lead Harry to the answer himself. And he's already feeling a bit frustrated at things that he has to do with Harry, like, hey, stop paying attention to all this other stuff. Like, the next time we see Dumbledore, it's him being like, hey, did you do this?
Right.
And Dumbledore is in the midst of dying. So, like, he needs things to happen quickly. So it's amazing. I mean, again, it's good for the writing in terms of, like, from a story creative standpoint, you don't want to just info dump. So this makes more sense. But it is frustrating from Dumbledore's side.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then, of course, we get this wonderful, luxurious line on the way out where Phineas Nigellus Black, in the wrong voice on the Jim Dale stuff, because he changes up the voice between 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
He says, I can't see why the boy should be able to do it better than you, Dumbledore. And Dumbledore says, I wouldn't expect you to, Phineas.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it works out. It's such an interesting, like, little back and forth. It's more, it's interesting to contemplate, you know, is this Phineas just doesn't think that a child could do something better than Dumbledore, or is it literally just he doesn't think that Harry could do something better than Dumbledore?
Like, no, I understand. I can see where that's coming from. That's a good point, Phineas.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm asking. Maybe I'm doing a stupid thing.
Maybe I should keep Miss Granger
so
instead.
funny.
Yeah.
Right. You know, it's interesting, but then it also kind of begs the question, you know, how much do these portraits in Dumbledore's office really know? You know, they seem to be sleeping an awful lot, but is that I wonder if there's like a magic at play of like the current headmaster can kind of like sleeping charm the portraits to, like, I don't need all of them knowing all this stuff. Obviously, they're not like gossipy portraits. Like
they also pretend to sleep, though.
True, but that's the other thing. They also like pretend to sleep a lot. So how much do these portraits know about the circumstances, and how much is Dumbledore like picking and choosing?
That brings us back to the whole mystery of this entire chapter, which is, what is the science behind the paintings?
Right.
It's cool.
Like, what are they even capable of doing? Like, the fat lady gets drunk because she visits a portrait of a monk with 500-year-old wine and drinks the entire barrel.
It was a vat, I believe.
It's a vat. Like, like if she jumped in, would she turn into the Joker, like a red wine Joker? Like, is Phineas Nigellus like? Does he even keep memory? Like, does he actually know what's going on?
Well, they can learn things.
So,
I mean, the fat lady can obviously knows different passwords at different times, so that suggests that they're able to learn.
There should be so much more art thief. Like, that's what Voldemort should be going after all the time. It's just all the paintings around the entire world to get as much information as possible. Like, no one should learn history of magic from Professor Binns. They should just be escorted to the next painting, and they should have them set up sequentially. So by year 7, you get to the bottom floor, and that's your last lesson before you walk out forever. It's the painting right next to the Great Hall.
They tried that, but they brought in Sir Cadogan as the escort, and it didn't go well.
That's fantastic.
I love that headcanon.
Yes, I love that so much.
You have to think too, though. Like, I'm pretty sure Dumbledore can just move the paintings outside of his office if he wants to, and chooses who he listens and who doesn't. So there has to be a reason for at least. I'm pretty sure for some, at least the portraits are in there for a reason, and they know everything. But
then you know that Dumbledore would. When he becomes a portrait, they would all bully him. They'd be like, "You were the first headmaster that removed us."
Well, isn't he?
Go beat him up.
He's
Not
in the
so
office
tough now,
with Snape.
Mr. Paintman.
Yeah, he's in the office with Snape. So
they forgot to paint me with a wand. I can't defend myself. Well. What a great chapter. Lots of food for thought. An excellent discussion had by all. We are now going to move to today's special, which has 7 ingredients. And in today's special, with our 7 ingredients, we have the 7 people who are the topic of Harry and Dumbledore's conversation. Sierra, take it away.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
We have Scrimgeour, Fudge, Snape, Malfoy, Riddle, Morphin, and Slughorn.
Sounds like a really bagged smorgasbord.
It does not sound tasty at all.
Scrimgeour sounds like some sort of charcuterie element.
Yes.
Fudge, clearly.
Fudge sounds great.
Snape sounds like tripe
snake?
and steak.
I don't like morphine.
Or snake. Morphine sounds like you are just taking morphine. Like you have your dessert right after your charcuterie, and then you eat a reptile, have some sort of apple, fix a riddle so that you can take your morphine, and then you just Slughorn out for the rest of the evening.
That should be a slang term, Slughorning out.
I like it.
So it's after Christmas. We're all full of Christmas dinner. Let's just Slughorn out for the rest of the day.
That sounds great. That's my plan for the rest of the day.
Not to be too crude, but it does sound like it's sort of a lazy Viagra.
Slughorn.
Just Slughorn out.
Like it.
Moving on.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, those 7. It's we start with 2 ministers of magic, then we go to a former Death Eater, a current Death Eater, the head of the Death Eaters, the uncle of the Death Eater, and then a guy who just sucks.
A guy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and shared the wrong information.
Forgot to mention a headmaster.
True.
At least you got a crystallized pineapple out of it.
These are all people who are killed by or threatened to be killed by Voldemort, other than himself.
Yeah.
Tom Riddle kills Scrimgeour, threatens to kill Fudge, kills Snape. I mean, Nagini kills Snape if there are people out there who want to argue that with me, but
Close enough.
Malfoy is threatened under penalty of death to kill Dumbledore. Tom Riddle obviously doesn't kill himself. I mean, he kind of does.
His own spell kills himself twice.
That's true. All right, never mind. Yeah, Tom Riddle, killed by Tom Riddle. Morphin,
sentenced to life imprisonment and eventual death.
And eventually dies there.
But
and then
we know
Slughorn.
the cause of death. We don't. Possibly Tom Riddle.
I'm telling you, it's Albus Dumbledore strangling him.
Albus Dumbledore in the jail cell with his own hands.
As he possibly might.
There's
know
the title of the
Parseltongue.
episode, Sierra. Thank you.
Might be some cousin or relative.
Yes. Cool people. Good chapter. I feel like there's not much more to say on those 7 people. We've covered all of them.
We have.
Well, folks, this chapter was sponsored by the Ministry of Magic. Have you ever felt down on your luck, like your life's moving nowhere? Well, just look at our new Minister of Magic employee, Percy Weasley, who picked himself up by his bootstraps and went climbing up the ranks in the ministry until politics got in the way, and now he's not really doing anything other than talking about cauldron bottom skin. But don't worry about him. If you want prestige, respect, and the love of your neighbors and spouse, join the Ministry of Magic. All you've got to do is mail in to 1234 5679 London, Britain, the UK, on the globe, Earth, and we'll send you an application that says, do you have possession of the Chosen One? And can you get him to sign up for the ministry? If not, you're out of a job. This is the Ministry of Magic, and we approve this message. Please bring us the Chosen One. I will note that was mainly all off the cuff.
Yes.
So if I bumbled my words, my apologies.
I was thinking right before you said that, I was saying, it should have been sponsored by Crystallized Pineapple.
This episode was also sponsored by Crystallized Pineapple. Oh my gosh, pineapple.
Get your friends and enemies to divulge their deepest, darkest secrets.
Crystallized Pineapple.
No,
I can't say pineapple. I don't know why. It's been endorsed by none other than Horace Slughorn. I've made terrible mistakes.
All right. Thank you so much, Matthew and Michael, for joining us here at the Three Broomsticks. It was amazing having you guys. Is there anywhere to follow you? Anything you want to plug? Any social medias or anything you would like for our listeners to follow you?
Matthew?
I don't have any public social media-ness. So join in the comment section. That's always fun. But I didn't have time to prepare anything. I got a frantic email from Irvin a couple of days before Christmas saying, we need another guest. So
you'll find Matthew in the wilds of New Zealand, hanging out with the golden-eyed penguins.
Yeah, just appreciate you guys having me on the podcast.
All right.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
Matthew.
Yeah.
It was great.
it's good fun.
Unlike our two guests, you can find us on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and our assorted handles and our email address can be found on the episode description or on our website. You may also find us on TikTok at some point if TikTok ever gets back to me in unsuspending our account. Our website is at 3broomstickspod.com. That's with the 3 spelled out, y'all. 3 as in THREE, broomstickspod.com, where you can find links to the essays we mentioned. You can submit a topic, and you can let us know your thoughts. We really like your comments, and we love commenting back on them. As we mentioned, please tell us who you think your goat character is. Go and find, and if it's Aberforth, I swear to God, if anyone makes a goat joke, I'm going to be so mad.
No one thought it until you just said it, and now that's all we'll get.
Took us 2.5 hours.
I
to come
will
up with
accept
that bad
if
joke.
someone wants to. The other thing that we asked for is that people go on and tell us what you think everybody's love language is, and I will accept if somebody puts goats for Aberforth's love language, I will give you a +1. I will plus that comment. But please let us know your thoughts, comment, all that jazz. Our next topic, we will be discussing our namesake, the 3 broomsticks itself. And don't worry, you might be thinking, how are they going to make an episode out of that? Well, it'll be 3 hours, guaranteed. So please check us out next time, where here on the 3 broomsticks, we'll be discussing the 3 broomsticks.
I'm Sierra
Sam Williams.
Overmark, and thanks for listening. See you next time in the 3 broomsticks. Cheers!
Give me big old buckets of butter beer. Give me big old barrels of butter beer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here. Give me big old buckets of butter beer. Give me big old barrels of butter beer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
This episode of The 3 Broomsticks was edited by Patrick Musilek. The theme song was written and performed by The Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
Pause the podcast. It's the holiday season, yeah. Patrick can put this at the end of the podcast for people to listen to. As long as the Jetsons don't sue us. I don't know if this is the Jetsons or the Flintstones. Bop, 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 bop. It's Flintstones, yep. Doo-da, a Flintstones, doo-da. We pause the podcast, yeah.
You silly twisted boy, you.
That's my new name. That's my new username for all my social media.
Silly twisted
you
boy.
Twisted boy, you. You silly twisted boy, you.
I like it.
I should point out, in the interest of clarity, that is a reference to a 1950s radio comedy show called The Goons.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
That makes it better, to be honest.
So if you know of anything, say Peter Sellers or Spike Milligan, they were the guys involved.
Oh, I love Peter Sellers.
Well, there you go then. It hasn't aged well as comedy does, but yeah.
I think that, I think I solved the mystery of why the dogs were barking, and it's because it started snowing. So.
Oh. Oh my God! Flecks of water are coming down! Save the children! That's so funny.
It's so magical.
Yes, so magical.
Merry Boxing Day.
Indeed.
That's right, listeners. You're listening to us from 2023. Ooh, it's in the past. Okay.
We're all a bit tired. Can you tell?